Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Monday, February 8th, 2021. At our top stories today, we'll take a further look at the current state of U.S. retirement, and then we'll discuss potential regulatory and legislative changes in 2021. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Chantel Sheeks. She's Executive Director for Retirement Policy for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Chantel, great to see you. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
I'm very happy to be here.
Well, it's great, and we really appreciate your efforts and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce efforts, especially when it comes around retirement security. So why don't we kick things off with get your perspective on retirement security?
I think one of the things when I try to describe my job, I always think about how would I explain this to my mother? What do I actually do? Because sometimes I think back in the day when I was a real lawyer, it was easier for her to understand what I did. But in a nutshell, I think my job at the Chamber is to try to make it easier for employers to provide retirement coverage and quality retirement coverage to their employees. And I think that's as basic as you can get when you take something that's so complicated or something we've made so complicated and we break it down. And that's really our goal at the Chamber.
And I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, the retirement industry in general, there's a lot of jargon for people to understand, and that sometimes can be challenging. But there is a lot in terms of opportunity for coverage. And I know we want to get into some of that here in this segment and elsewhere. But there are a lot of Americans, millions of Americans, who may not have access to a retirement plan, a qualified workplace retirement plan like a 401k, a 403b, or a governmental 457.
Oh, correct. And that's one of the things that we have to acknowledge is that there isn't the coverage. And so I go back to saying, how do we make it easier for employers to offer that coverage? And instead of mandating that employers offer that coverage, employers are not offering it because they don't want to. They're offering it, as I was talking to a colleague of mine yesterday, and we were actually talking about some of the provisions with association retirement plans, with the pooled employer plans. And we really do think that's a really good first step. And I'm really excited to see, I think Department of Labor has, I'd have to go back and double check online, but something 30 to 40 entities that have registered as pooled plan providers. But a big question in my mind, it seems like forever ago, but when the association retirement plan rules came out, those regulations came out, we had a lot of interest by chambers, we had a lot of interest by a lot of other entities, and then unfortunately, things happened. And COVID hit. And our employers, honestly, and chambers and everybody else, they're not thinking about retirement. They're trying to think about how to get their businesses working, how to get their workers working. What are they supposed to do? And retirement's kind of always it's later. It's something later. So we face the challenge of people not thinking about it right now. But when I was also thinking about it, I saw all the excitement when the regulation came out. But then what the regulation didn't do, and we've supported the regulation, we thought it was great, it still didn't even make it easier to offer a plan. So if you just think about it in general is you may have a chamber, some of our chambers are very large, some of them are small. They may only have 2 or 3 employees. And so now they need to set up an entire retirement plan from scratch. That's a really big endeavor. So I think when I've heard people say, well, there hasn't been a big uptake, I think there will be, but industry also has to jump in and make it easier for people to offer these plans.
Yeah, and to your point, Chantel, I mean, you make a great point. I mean, right now, the CARES Act passes late December of 2019. We head into 2020. The pandemic hits, and now we're focused on the CARES Act, right? I mean, we're focused on, I meant the Secure Act, but you know what I mean. We had
Secure, and trust me, I was probably as excited as everybody else. We'd worked very hard on Secure. And I remember giving a presentation to my membership. I went through provision by provision where we might need regulations, where it was self-implementing, what we could do. And then the pandemic hit. And we were just struggling to make sure that companies could survive. And then we also had to deal with the retirement provisions of the CARES Act. Yeah. So I'm hoping we can kind of get back on track with Secure Act, with implementing the Secure Act, and implementing some of the regulations that had come out, such as the association retirement plan regulations.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. So let's play it forward, and let's hope that the vaccines are effective. Most of Americans can get vaccinated. How do you see it? And I do agree that it is. I mean, I don't see how you can agree that it's a little early to judge a pooled employer plan or an association retirement plan because we're in the throes of this pandemic. But let's play it forward. I mean, are you expecting members of the various chambers, businesses out there, smaller businesses, to really step up and evaluate these 30 plus pooled providers?
Oh, I definitely think that we're going to I talk to HR departments all the time. We're very lucky at the chamber. We have a variety of members, from employers as plan sponsors to service providers as service providers, service providers as employers. And so much has happened. If you just think about last summer, we got regulation after regulation after regulation, and it was very difficult for anyone to catch up. So I think HR departments are now taking a deep breath. Once the vaccine gets rolled out, once we decide what the new normal is, I think there's going to be a new focus on retirement, because the worry is what the pandemic has done for a lot of us in the HR field. It's exposed some of the problems that we already had. So, for example, one of the things that we were kind of struggling, it was very difficult for us with the CARES Act to have the CARES Act the CRDs, so the CARES Act distributions. On one hand, you want to make sure that people have money now, because we know a lot of people were hurting, they lost jobs. But on the other hand, what happens 30 years from now? We generally know that we think it's great that you can pay those back, but if you don't have any money, it's very difficult to pay a distribution back. So I think there will be a renewed focus, not only on retirement, but what we're seeing with a lot of our members and also with our service providers, and what we're also looking at too, is financial wellness in general. So unfortunately, the old school of thought, we're always pushing everybody, you need to save 3 months, 6 months, a year for just your savings in case an emergency happened. Then on top of that, you're supposed to save for your retirement. On top of that, you're supposed to save for your kids' education. On top of that, you're supposed to save for something else. And for too many people, that's just overwhelming. So go ahead.
I was going to say, I think for almost anybody that'd be overwhelming. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do think that more comprehensive approach, I was going to use the word holistic, but I'm tired of using that. So I'm going to say the most comprehensive approach where you can bring it all together speaks to people. If you're going to put that, and I do think you're absolutely right for what it's worth, that I think employers are going to be looking at not only retirement benefits, but all of their benefits. I think that the pandemic has really helped kind of reshape that thinking.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going. And I think that's what we're working with our employers, with our service providers, is instead of siloing everything, let's take a look at our benefits holistically. I just used the word for you, so you didn't have to. Let's just take a look at everything that we have, because too often, I'm the executive director of retirement policy, but I also, prior to my job here at the chamber, I worked as a consultant. I worked in a number of other areas. Employers have a bucket of money. Employees have a bucket of money. How do we divide that bucket of money? And I think that's where we're now going with financial wellness. We started out with wellness programs a long time ago where they only looked at health. And then you had, let's just look at retirement. I think we've now converged together. We have to look at all of them together. And that's the only way we're going to get to retirement savings. And, as I'm reading up on this, I like the idea of the hierarchy of needs. So I can't tell someone to go fully fund up your 401k if they don't have $400 because they had a flat tire. So that's where we see a lot of our employers going, is an employee who's not worrying about their finances, whether it's their current finances or their future retirement, is a happier employee. And using financial wellness as a means of productivity, because if you're worried about something else, you cannot concentrate on your job.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chantel, I want to take a very quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk to Chantel about what we might be able to expect from the Biden administration and a new Congress, new Senate. So stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here, and if you're on Medicare, this is important. You're now entitled to eliminate co-pays and get dental care, dentures, eyeglasses, prescription coverage, in-home aids, unlimited transportation, and home-delivered meals, all at no additional cost. Plus, your zip code may have coverage with the Give Back benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month. Look, with the uncertainty of the virus and vaccines, you need to get everything you're entitled to. Here's the bottom line. Call to get significant benefits at no additional cost and see if your zip code has coverage with the Give Back benefit. Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline. You can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-924-3920. That's 1-800-924-3920.
Welcome back. We're talking to Chantel Sheeks of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Chantel, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Oh, happy to be here.
So, I think huge efforts here by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to really promote retirement savings, but financial wellness. Let's talk about what we might expect this year, 2021, from a new U.S. presidential administration, as well as our friends in the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Senate. What are you hearing about on the Hill?
So like you said, we'll start with the Hill. Let's go back to the last Congress. Well, let's just go back to 2019 where we started. So we got the Secure Act passed. And I think it was a little bit of a surprise to everyone. I literally remember driving home and then I was at a stop sign. The phone goes off, Secure Act passed. We're like, great. And then at the end of the last session, we did have Chairman Brady and Chairman Neal and Ranking Member Brady dropped their bill being dubbed as Secure 2.0, which again, we think it's a starting point. And we also really applauded the fact that we are seeing people working together. And that's one of the things I'd love to get back to. That's what Secure Act was. We'd like to get back in the retirement space. And part of the reason I enjoy the retirement space is it's bipartisan. It's very difficult. I can't go into any member's staff, go into their office and say, you don't support retirement security, do you? They don't. So I think what we're going to see with the Neal Brady bill, it's a start. And it's going to take time. There was some chatter about, well, it's going to be passed in the last Congress and we'll go from there. I think what we need to do is also step back, because we did have Secure passed in 2019. And as we talked about earlier, it hasn't really been implemented yet. So let's get Secure implemented. Let's get the PEPs implemented. There are annuity provisions. There's part-time employee provisions. There's a lot in there that we need to get implemented. And then we can then take a look at what we have in Secure 2.0 and see what we need to add, what we need to subtract, how we can make it better. We also have on the Senate side, we have Portman Cardin, who have always been champions, and they have their bill that had been out there for some time, their Secure 2.0. So how can we integrate that with what the House has provided us? But again, what we're doing at the Chamber, we're working with a lot of the other trades because we think that this is really important, is to get the views of everyone, because when everyone's kind of coming in, we think we'll get a better bill and then move forward. But going back to what I was saying of getting the implementation, and this is where we want to work with the administration, is that just for practical reasons, some of the implementations, both from the IRS and from the DOL, they kind of got put on the back burner. And I am not blaming them at all. I think sometimes we forget these new laws come in, things happen, and guess what? They don't increase the staff at DOL and they don't increase the IRS staff, but we add all this extra work for them, yet they have the same number of staff members.
Yep. And there's only so many hours in the day.
Exactly. And we think they did a fabulous job of taking care of some of the emergency regulations and guidance that we needed during the first year with coronavirus. But now we're looking forward to, there's some questions that are outstanding with relations to the pooled employer plans, with part-time employees, and then kind of walking through with the new administration what we can see just with Secure 2.0, how we can help them, how our members can help them, and looking at just getting that actually implemented so that we can see, going back to our first segment, how this really will increase coverage. Instead of putting in mandates, instead of putting put everything else in there, let's first start off with what we have.
Yeah, I mean, and it is a lot of education, educating employers, educating stakeholders about what's available. Chantel, I want to ask you about, you mentioned some of the regulations. There's been some this discussion about ESG and some of the pecuniary, can't get that word out, pecuniary factors that go into ESG. I know the new administration is looking at that, so we could see kind of some revisions down the line or some changes there. Are there other regulations that you think might get a fresh look, or even new regulations that might come down the pike?
Well, one of the things that we're also hoping to, and by the way, I can never say that word either. So
yeah, well, I'm not an attorney though, so I just hear it and I try to phonetically spell it in my head.
One of the things that we're probably going to look at, we did appreciate that the last administration came out with best practices on missing participants, but we would like to work with the administration on this. We also look forward to working with the administration on ensuring the proper delivery method of notices. Is we did support the safe harbor that came out on electronic disclosure. And again, it's a safe harbor. And one of the things I'd like to point out, that really hasn't been implemented either. It's less than a year old, and employers generally do not change until they need to. People supported that, but I'm not going to just up in the way I'm doing something until something else makes me have to do it. So we want to make sure that the delivery method is how it makes sense for your own employees, whether it be paper, whether it be electronic, whether it be a mix of something like that. And also working with the administration on one of my pet projects that I still haven't gotten to, but would like to, is just let's take a look at our notices in general. And I think that goes back to the communication, both to employers. How do we communicate to employer to let them know what's out there? And then once we have a plan, how do we communicate in English to employees? Most people don't know what the term vested even means. Most people don't even understand. We expect so much, and we put all this jargon and gobbledygook in it. So I'm really looking forward to working with the Department of Labor and other people in the industry of finding a better way to describe what we have and what employers have to give.
You are speaking words to me. I mean, I completely agree with you. I think a lot of that jargon can turn people off, especially when you're looking at setting, and we talked about this comprehensive or holistic approach. If you don't have that and you set things in different tranches or different areas, it really gets people confused as to what certain terms mean. And when I get confused, I just stick my hands up, bury my head in the sand, and don't even do anything. Last question, Chantel. What about guaranteed income? And again, the Secure Act allowed for annuities or provided some level of safe harbor for annuities and retirement income. That seems to be a huge issue. Annuities or annuity-like products have been underutilized for quite some time. What about giving participants, employees, and plan sponsors, employers, more information about retirement income and how to take money out of their plans?
We support that 100%, but we also, again, going back to, it's not a one size fits all. For example, if I only have $5,000 in my account, well, good luck even finding an annuity that you can purchase for $5,000. If I already have a defined benefit plan, do I need to annuitize? If I don't, I probably do. And so what we want to work with is we fully support annuities. We think guaranteed lifetime income is very, very important. We also think shoring up Social Security is very important. But looking at a bigger picture of all of it is, and also from the employer standpoint, making sure that the employer is also protected. Just as an FYI, I'm a former litigator. So in my mind, I always have this fear of no good deed goes unpunished. Employers want to do the right thing. They don't have to offer benefits. So in providing these lifetime income, we want to make sure it's the right thing for the employee, that there's employee choice, but then there's also protection for the employer. So I think the best way that we can do it is really through education, whether it's a public-private partnership, which would be great, but we really think the next area where we need to start looking at is decumulation, but remembering that it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chantel, we're going to have to leave it there. Really appreciate you coming on the program, kind of outlining your thoughts, the Chamber's thoughts on retirement planning. So vital, so important to this country and to so many to all Americans. Really appreciate having you on, and we look forward to having you back again very soon.
Thank you so much.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to? Then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, all in one place. Yeah, that's right. Check out today's edition of our newsletter, The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited, and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.